and welcome to Telewizja Republika. When the world media were stormed by the reports from the Moscow shopping mall shooting, it was obvious that it is just a matter of time when we will see Russia hitting back. Hitting back the same people Russia usually hits back. As we know, this kind of events usually means that FSB itself, the Russian secret services, are attacking its own citizens. We know this pattern very well since in 1999. The FSB with Nikolai Patrushev, number 2 on Kremlin, and Vladimir Putin, number 1 in Kremlin, arranged the terrorist attacks against its own citizens to grab the power that are holding those gentlemen, and this FSB criminal gang is holding till today, basically. Today's missile attacks on Ukraine are clear answer in this twisted logic, as attacks on Chechnya were answers to the provocations organized by FSB itself. From strategic strikes in Crimea to missile attacks on Kyiv, we've come a long way in a short time. The situation on the ground remains volatile. This report outlines the key developments. Well, first of all, Ukraine's precision hits that we witnessed were successful and were confirmed by the Ukrainian armed forces. The Ukraine missiles targeted 2 Russian Republika-class landing ships, Yamal and Azov, in occupied Crimea. The late-hour operation on March 23rd not only inflicted damage on these naval assets, but also impacted the Black Sea Fleet's infrastructure and the Russian military communications center. These actions are part of Ukraine's intensified campaign against Russian military positions on the peninsula, which Russia has occupied illegally since 2014, trying to annex it and make it effectively a part of Russian Federation. The operational status of the ship's post-attack remains under assessment. The Defense Secretary Grant Shapps highlighted the significant impact of these strikes, stating that the Russian Black Sea Fleet is now functionally inactive. This development underscores the strategic setbacks for Russia, whose naval presence in the Black Sea dates back to 1783. On the other hand, we had another attack on Ukraine. On 25th March, the day of the Security Service of Ukraine, SBU, was also the date of another rocket barrage. Kyiv was targeted by ballistic missiles launched from Crimea. Despite the aim to strike the SBU offices, Ukrainian air defense systems successfully intercepted at least part of the missiles, preventing damage to the intended targets. However, the capital city experienced multiple explosions, causing injuries and property damage. The air raid, which saw residents and officials reacting swiftly to seek shelter, marked another day of resilience for Kyiv against the backdrop of ongoing assaults. What is important that this time, the time frame between the air raid alarms and the explosions was very, very short. We will discuss it with our friend Joe Lindsley tonight on our program. On the other hand, we witnessed an incident over Poland. The conflict's reach extended beyond Ukraine's borders again, with a Russian missile briefly violating Polish airspace. The incident occurred amidst a larger assault involving 57 missiles and drones launched by Russia against Ukraine, including targets in Kyiv and the western region of Lviv. Ukraine's Air Force reported the successful interception of a significant number of these threats. However, the breach of Poland's airspace raised grave concerns about the conflict's potential to affect neighboring countries, underlining the widespread implications of Russia's military actions and leaving questions to be answered. Whether states like Poland, NATO member states being obviously provoked like this should shoot down this kind of assets, missiles flying over our territory. And this is not a very difficult question to answer. Yes, it should be shot down. The international community also grapples with the fallout from a deadly attack on Moscow's Crocus City Hall, which resulted in numerous casualties. Russia has detained individuals that are, according to criminals ruling Russia right now, connected to the incident amidst claims of Ukrainian involvement. Yet this is a blatant lie, another lie that we've heard over and over again for years. Remember, the Chechens were supposed to plant explosives in the basements of buildings in 1999. What actually was proved by Yuri Felsztyński and Alexander Litvinenko shortly after, the FSB itself planted those explosives, and above mentioned Nikolai Patrushev was the guy who claimed that it was sugar. Since then dates the saying about Ryazan sugar, which basically means false flag operations executed by Russia against its own citizens to justify attacks against the states and nations that Russia wants to conquer. And that's, again, the same pattern that we've seen in 1999 and then in North Ost Dubrovka, in Beslan, in few and at least couple of similar situations over the span of those 25 years of criminal ruling of Vladimir Putin over Russia. You can join us on rachoń.com. You'll find there our latest report about the way that Russian secret services used Islamic terrorism as a decoy of its own activity. You'll find there a report about the so-called Islamic terrorists being assets of Russian intelligence services, KGB and FSB. You can leave us your email there. We'll get back to you with the reports from the front lines of the ongoing war against the West, because that's what we are going to talk about on my show. My name is Michał Rachoń. This is Rachoń. And we roll in.
Are you ready? 3, 2, 1, go!
It's Monday, and as you know, when Joe Lindsley is on Monday, it means that probably he is moving from one place where he is in the middle of trouble into another one where he is in the middle of the trouble as well. So straight from Kharkiv, which was under attack last days, straight to Kyiv, which was under attack today. Joe Lindsley is again on Telewizja Republika. Joe, welcome back.
Michał, hello. And indeed, as I arrived in Kyiv at midday today, we had news of the hypersonic missile attack upon the city just a couple hours before. And I had just spent the weekend, I'd spent about a week in Kharkiv city. On Friday, of course, we had those 15 Russian missiles that precisely hit that city's infrastructure. And so even as I left the city early this morning, much of it was still without power. And the water services had returned, but the city was still without power. But important to note, last Friday, when the city was plunged not only into lack of electricity, but it was very difficult to get cell service and internet connection. And the spirit of that city is so strong that people tried at the beginning of the day to go on the rooftops and get some cell service in order to do their work. And when they realized it was impossible, it was a beautiful spring day, and people took a holiday. So it was an unintended consequence of Russia's attack from Russia with Love. The people of Kharkiv had a nice holiday on Friday, and that's that spirit that why I love that city so much. No matter what kind of hell they face, they find a way to make something good out of it.
It's definitely a surrealistic, even I didn't see those pictures like this or reports. It's very interesting and surrealistic, as we know the war can be. But based on what we know by now about the latest attacks, I assume that something interesting and dangerous surely happened here, because we even know it from your reports, your weekly reports, that usually people who live in Ukraine right now have a certain margin of time between the air raid alarm and rockets and missiles coming in. It was different this time.
Yeah, well, in a city like Kharkiv, you never have notice because it's so close to the border with Russia. But that's a very different reality here in Kyiv. Kyiv is, deeper in the country, and it's well protected by air defense, including the Patriot missiles from the United States. And so what happened this morning in Kyiv was deeply disturbing. Every single person with whom I've spoken since I arrived 2 hours after the attack was shaken by it because the air raid alarm sounded, and no one really runs for shelter in Kyiv. And then 10 seconds when the air raid alarm, as it was still sounding, 10 seconds after it started, this horrible, loud thud was heard in the center of the city. I know people that watched it from their windows, like seeing Star Wars outside of their windows as the air defense tried to intercept. One of the places that was hit is a Ukrainian cultural museum dedicated to a Ukrainian poet who was murdered by the Soviets, I think in 1937. And it was directly hit this memorial to a dissident from that time. But there were other places that were hit here. It seemed that these were ballistic missiles sent from Crimea, which also underscores the strategic value of Crimea. That missile took about 2 minutes to get from Crimea to Kyiv, and there was 10 seconds warning here in Kyiv. And so that had people rattled. The fact that it was right over the center of the city, and there was heavy destruction. And we see a different type of new intensity here. I think the likes of which we haven't seen, because yesterday morning, Lviv region was attacked, and over that beautiful historic center city of Lviv, the white ivory tower that's in the middle of the city, and the market square, Russian drones and missiles were flying directly over that in a way that they never have these past 2 years. Yesterday morning. But that was not their target. They went south of Lviv to the small city of Stry, and I know people there. They pummeled that city with hypersonic missiles in this small city, which does have key energy infrastructure and oil infrastructure. It's a key transit point for the oil and gas that's going to Europe. It seems that the Russians were precisely targeting these things in Stry, and then we have this sort of new level of attack here in Kyiv. Not only today, but there have been attacks the past several days. And then, of course, in eastern Ukraine, where I was these past days, in Kharkiv, they precisely hit the infrastructure. And so, we've had many months without regular Russian missile attacks on Ukrainian cities deep within the country. And now we see, it seems like they've saved up firepower for this moment.
So what is the reason for this? Because based on the official reports, the hit ratio or the effectiveness of the Ukrainian air defense or anti-missile defense seems to be lower than we got used to, cause significantly bigger amount or percentage of the rockets and missiles and drones shot by Ruskies hit the target. We remember even attacks with over 90% of effectiveness of the Ukrainian anti-missile defense system. It wasn't the case of the latest attack. So what is the reason? Did Russia change something in their tactics? Did they find out something about the Ukrainian defense tactics? Is there a new kind of weapon systems that are being used? What is the reason? What do you make of it? What do people who are in Ukraine make of those numbers now?
Well, on either side of this, everyone is always adapting. And you see this with drone warfare, but we see this with missiles. And I was talking with some soldiers the other day about, the missiles they've seen before impact, it shoots off little sort of mini missiles in order to distract and confuse the air defense. And there's a perpetual effort to improve these systems. But what we've had is, really for many, many months, going back to last early fall, September, when the Ukrainians began to use Storm Shadow missiles and other tools from the UK in particular to hit places in Crimea and the Black Sea, we've really had a dearth of Russian attacks. It wasn't like what we saw 1 year ago. And there was a window of opportunity these past months. to fortify Ukraine, with to send ATACMS and long-range missiles and tools to Ukraine to get the job done. And we see the dithering in Washington. That really wasn't done. And what it did, it seems, it gave Russia time to prepare. And there's a heavy sense. I mean, I felt it deeply there in Kharkiv, and now here in Kyiv today. And when I talk to people in Lviv, a heavy sense that Russia thinks that this is their moment to put on extra pressure to crush this country, because they see weakness around the world and in the West. And that's really that's sort of a heavy, sincere feeling here. And many people I talk, when I hear the chatter from Washington, so many of them are resigned to sort of giving up Eastern Ukraine and giving up Kharkiv. That's why I spent the past 2 weeks reporting from there, because when I'm there, I realize none of those people for 1 second think about giving up. It's a place of incredible courage and inspiration. But there's a heaviness that the Russians have. I mean, what they've been doing is that, lately with drones, they send the drones to test and weaken the air defense. And they've been doing that for many months now. And now it seems that they said, okay, now it's time. They've done enough testing, and now they precisely have been hitting some pretty powerful targets.
You mentioned that Kyiv is protected and well protected by the anti-missile batteries. We know it's almost official knowledge that Patriot anti-missile batteries are deployed around Kyiv. We don't know where exactly, but we know that that's the fact. And on the other hand, we've seen reports lately that some of the Western anti-missile systems were targeted and hit by Russian forces, by Russian rockets and Russian missiles. Does it mean that the Ukrainian defense capabilities, the capabilities of defending its capital, were somehow harmed?
It's possible. We don't know. I mean, I think, we're going to see a lot what happens in the coming days. There is a sense there's going to be a lot more activity. But in all this context, we have to remember, Kyiv has been extremely well protected for a long time, really for about a year. And often the damage that happens during these attacks, including today, is often from the missile defense system working, but you're always going to have debris that falls. The big concerning thing today was that, with no notification how that missile was able to get here. But there's always the other side of it, and everything's we're in between, moving toward victory and trying not to go toward defeat. Was it yesterday? The Ukrainians used, I think it was yesterday morning. Forgive me, it might have been the day before. I didn't have internet connection for 3 days really. But Ukrainians used the Storm Shadow missiles from the United Kingdom to hit very critical Russian infrastructure in the Crimean Peninsula. And I know people who were very close to that. Well, I know people who know people who were very close to those sites in Crimea who can confirm that Ukrainians did hit very critical Russian infrastructure. So while the Russians are having some successes, the Ukrainians are also able to push back. And, it has been, for weeks now, there has been barely a Russian naval presence in the Black Sea.
Yeah, and and other vessels hit by the Ukrainian long-range missiles is also the case of the last days and last hours. And as we try to focus on the things that the mainstream media do not want to focus, which are basically the Ukrainian gains and Ukrainian wins, even if those are relatively smaller wins that we would all hope to see, still that's exactly what is going on. But I would like to have your opinion about one more aspect of the missile attack against Kyiv. And we are not talking about today's attack, but we are talking about the barrage of missiles that were shot against the Ukraine on Sunday. This is another case of another missile that was flying over territory of my home country of Poland. It was present over our territory for roughly about 40 seconds, and it came back to the Ukrainian airspace. And of course, the talking point here in Poland is whether Poland should shut down this kind of missiles or no. What does it mean to shoot this kind of missile? We know that the nature of the NATO air surveillance techniques is developed so the people in charge knew that this missile was coming. However, the decision was made not to shot it down. But on the other hand, something happened with this missile after coming back to Ukrainian airspace, and it opens the question of what to do with this kind of things. We know that Russia sends this kind of missiles as a provocation, that's obvious, but it also opens the questions about what to do with this kind of things that are obviously another new pattern of Russian hostile activity against Ukraine and its allies.
Well, I think we can keep deciding to put the question off until the missile. Maybe you want to wait till it gets closer to Krakow or Warsaw. I mean, it's just this is how it works. We see this. They can keep poking and decide to punt the question till later, and maybe they'll go further next time. Part of the reason why that missile did go into Polish airspace is because these missiles are always changing course. In fact, the attack, I think it was on Friday. On Saturday, maybe. It's hard to keep track of the attacks these past days because it is a new intensity.
I believe it was Sunday morning.
But no, before that, because it was an interesting point that there was one of the recent attacks in the morning that when Kyiv was the ultimate target, there were Russian missiles flying all over Ukraine. And we're reading the reports, everyone from Lviv to Ternopil to Odessa, everywhere. And it's like, all right, missiles coming to you, missiles coming to you. Now it's turning course. And then in one very scary, sinister moment, we all saw the report. All these missiles all around Ukraine, almost within the same minute, began to turn toward Kyiv. So what they're trying to do is to terrorize the country, to confuse the air defense. But it was such a scary, imagine you're in Kyiv. We all felt it for everyone in Kyiv. All of a sudden you realize it was like more than 10 missiles everywhere. And then it was a chilling feeling when you saw, geez, they're all going right now to Kyiv. And it was a hellish moment there. But that's part of the reason why the missile was over Polish airspace, because it was trying to hit, in that case, these high value targets near the border. And in order to be sneaky, there's a high risk, of course, that it's going to fly to Polish airspace. But this is a question for the world. We've seen this before, but we do see more brazenness from Russia these past days. I think we can expect more of this in the near future.
I'm sorry to say that I do agree with you that we are going to see more of those, as those provocations' goal is to make the side that is provoked react somehow. So that's the challenge that the NATO countries are facing right now in the context of long-standing war of Russia against Ukraine. Sorry to say that, but if NATO countries, NATO states would have been effective in containing Russia earlier, we wouldn't have to ask this kind of questions by now and right now. And I'm not even mentioning about the years of building the reset policies by pumping hundreds of billions of dollars to Vladimir Putin's coffers so that he can finance this barrage of missiles that is hitting people in Ukraine right now. Joe, but speaking of Russia, speaking of Moscow, we talked on the Polish special edition of our Polish program on Friday, when the world media were shocked by the shooting in a shopping mall in Moscow, and actually in the same minutes we knew that there is going to be a kind of reaction, a kind of follow-up from the Russian side, and we didn't have to wait long. The missile attacks are probably only the first of those follow-ups. But I wonder, what do you make of those scenes that we've seen on Friday? And in a way, they are still commented online by the people all over the world.
Well, Michal, the first thing I would say, I don't trust anything that comes out of Moscow. And until Evan Gershkovich, the American Wall Street Journal reporter, who's now, as of this week, has been in a Russian prison for 1 year, until he's released and able to report on what is happening in Moscow, I'm not going to trust or believe anything that comes out of that city. That's my response. Until they release that American journalist, Wall Street Journal journalist, Evan Gershkovich, then I have no reason to have one iota of sympathy or understanding of anything that happens there, because we can't, because there's no free media there, and because they're imprisoning an American journalist. That's my main answer to whatever was going on in
Yeah,
Moscow.
so I would just like all the people who view this interview, who are in front of the computers right now, to rewind this answer of Joe Lindsley, a man who is watching this war day by day for 3 years, because this is probably the most important takeaway and most important piece of information, and the way that the Russian disinformation should be treated by the decent people of the Western civilization. Do not trust Ruskies. They are lying on those issues all the time. Sorry to interrupt. Continue, please.
No, I agree. I think it's actually, I think it's very simple. And you see how effectively it works. You know, the world is, looking at the flowers placed in Moscow or whatever. And, while I was speaking with you on Friday, we lost connection because I had bad internet connection, and my building shook from the explosion of a Russian-Iranian suicide drone. Let's remember also that Hamas sent condolences to Russia after this attack. Putin has a pattern of false flag attacks. We need to be supremely skeptical. Some people have been criticizing Ukrainians for not, standing in solidarity with the mourning people of Moscow. Well, every moment, the people of Russia and Moscow are attacking this country, and we can't trust anything that goes out of it. And I'll just reiterate, until Moscow releases Evan Gershkovich, American Wall Street Journal reporter, from prison, we have zero reason to trust one single thing that happens there. I don't believe it.
And I think all of our viewers can refer to and come back to, if you are interested in the history of organizing of the so-called Islamic terrorism by KGB, by FSB, on rachoń.com. You can find a long article that comes back to the history of arranging Islamic terrorist attacks by KGB and then by FSB, with a long-standing history of organizing terrorist attacks. Alexander Litvinenko gave a big interview on that subject a year before he was assassinated by KGB. Ion Mikhail Pacepa, which was the highest-ranked Soviet general who escaped from communist Romania to United States, published a book about those activities, about the way that the Islamic terrorists were basically assets of KGB, and he was the general who was running those assets. We got lots of examples, like 400 meters, let's say 1 kilometer from the place where I'm standing right now, one of the Palestinian terrorists was shot in Warsaw in early 1980s because he was here using a communist safe haven after 1972 terrorist attack on Munich and killing Israeli sportsmen. The communists and Russia always used Islamic terrorism as a way to attack Western states. So they, of course, do it when in 1999, they were doing when in 1999 they attacked their own citizens to justify attack against Chechnya. This is the basic understanding that we do have of this problem here. So what do you expect right now after what we saw? In Moscow?
We expect, as I said, Michal, it's a heavy feeling. We expect we're already seeing a taste of. What happened to Kyiv on Friday, crippling that city's infrastructure, when so much of that city had come back to life. This very sneaky attack on Kyiv today, and those infrastructure attacks. And by the way, we didn't even mention the attack on the hydroelectric dam in Dnipro, attacks in Zaporizhia and other places. We are seeing a new brazenness and boldness, and I think Russia was waiting for maximum weakness and lack of will in the U.S. In the U.S., you have Republicans that refuse to sustain any funding for Ukraine, and you have a White House, which so many people scream at me whenever I mention this, but a White House that refuses to lead, that has taken windows of opportunity that Ukrainians have pried open, using tools from the UK and the US and other places to mitigate Russia's ability to attack. It has bought so much time and prevented Russia from attacking in a serious way many Ukrainian cities. But then every time we sort of waste those windows of opportunity with language of appeasement And it's the Russian tyrant smells weakness. And I think everyone here is buckled down and prepared that the next nights and days are going to be hell. And we've already seen lots of hell, but there's really a sense that something new is coming. And this is the moment if we can punch through the propaganda, or are we going to get overcome by emotion for poor dear Moscow and that attack? This is the information war is I think at its highest, most intense level right now, and this is it's a chess game, it's a poker game, it's all of this all in one. So I would say, there's a heavy feeling right now throughout all of Ukraine. But that doesn't mean it's not a sense of giving up. In Kharkiv, no one was leaving the city despite the hell. That's a key thing to emphasize. But
the people who were to leave probably already left it. Those who are
but so many have come back.
Yeah.
They've returned. They left last year, but now they're done. They're beyond that stage. They said there is such a sense of defiance, and that's why I hear chatter from Americans too that Kharkiv, Russians are going to invade Kharkiv. They always say this whenever there's big attacks. If you're there for 2 hours, you would say that's not possible.
Actually, after we lost the connection with Joe on Friday, we had a connection with another friend of our program, who is the academic teacher, the academic teacher in Ukraine, who knows Ukrainian reality, who claims that the fairy tale of Russia being able to attack effectively any other state outside Ukraine right now is ridiculous if we are talking about the traditional ways of executing hostile war activities like the ones we are seeing in Ukraine right now. Joe, thanks a lot. Stay safe. We wait for your next reports. Brave man, 3 years, don't stop in Ukraine. Joe Lindsley. Stay safe, my friend. See you soon.
Be safe in Poland, too, from those Russian missiles.
Yeah, we just should shut them down. Thanks for watching us. You can join us here on rachoń.com. That's our Substack. We try to post daily reports on the important information about the ongoing war against the West, not only the one that Russia is waging against our civilization in Ukraine. We come back tomorrow. See you soon. Ciao, ciao. Bye.